An NYC trust fund kid was being forced into an arranged marriage. And he found me, short-tempered and with a stutter. He tipped my chin up. "You, with the stutter. Want to get married?" I slapped his hand away. Have. He clamped a hand over my mouth. That eager to marry me? Next thing I knew, I was stuffed into a sports car and dragged to City Hall. Asshole. I was trying to say, have some damn decency. My breakfast burrito was so good it could steal your soul. Fresh off the griddle, the tortilla was golden and crispy, the sauce was savory and warm, and I was getting it all over my face. I was squatting on the curb, so lost in my food I wouldn't have noticed if the world ended. Just as I was piously preparing to take that one perfect, soulful bite, the one with the most filling and sauce, a shadow fell over me, completely uncalled for. Instinctively, I hugged the burrito to my chest and looked up, on high alert. Whoa. Well, damn. A flashy red sports car had silently pulled up to the curb, its front bumper less than a foot from the toes of my beat-up Converse. The car door swung up like a wing, and a man stepped out. Black suit, hair slicked back perfectly, revealing a smooth, broad forehead, high-bridged nose, and a jawline sharper than a razor. Standing there, he looked like he'd just been peeled off a luxury billboard. He raised a hand and irritably loosened his tie, his movements radiating the pent-up frustration of a cornered animal. A few girls walking by stopped and stared. Oh my God, it's Luke Vance. The one from the NYC elite? He's even hotter in person. He looked at me. Luke Vance? The name sounded vaguely familiar. Oh, right. A regular on both the business pages and in the gossip rags. A few sensational headlines flashed through my mind. Vance Air binge drinking after dark. High society merger in doubt as Luke refuses to cooperate. Not my problem. My burrito was getting cold. I looked away, ready to get back to business. The next second, I felt a gaze on me, one that screamed of desperation and recklessness. With a piece of burrito still in my mouth, I looked up, confused. Luke strode over, crossing the distance in just a few steps. The tip of his expensive leather shoe nearly touched my sauce-stained laces. He looked down at me, his eyes scanning my face before flicking dismissively to the greasy burrito in my hands. His brow furrowed so deeply you could have parked a fly in it. Then, he dropped a bombshell that nearly made my burrito sacrifice itself on the pavement. You'll do. Come with me and get a marriage license. A what now? Get what license? Marriage? A marriage license? My mouth hung open, crumbs threatening to fall out. Ever since I was a kid, my temper couldn't stand it when people pulled this domineering CEO, forced love act on me. Who the hell do you think you are? You think being handsome gives you a free pass? That money lets you do whatever you want? I stuck my neck out, trying to summon my most ferocious tone to deliver the most resounding rejection. Have some. God, I hate my stutter. The word decency was stuck in my throat, refusing to come out. My face turned beet red as I kept trying. Some. Luke cracked a slight smile. The next second, a large hand, smelling faintly of a cold, woody cologne, shot out and clamped over my mouth with lightning speed. That eager to marry me? Then let's go. My burrito hit the ground with a splat. A noble end. MMPH. I struggled desperately, flailing my arms and legs. My fists hammered against his rock-solid arm, and my feet kicked wildly at the air. But he was terrifyingly strong. His other arm wrapped around my waist like an iron band, lifting me off the ground as if I were a kitten. What the hell? What's happening? Did Luke Vance just grab that girl eating the burrito? Get a picture. Quick, get a picture. The chatter and camera clicks faded behind us, carried away by the wind. Luke slung me over his shoulder and strode toward his flashy sports car. He tossed me into the passenger seat like a sack of potatoes and slammed the door shut. "Buckle up," he said as he started the engine. His voice was calm, as if he hadn't just abducted a woman in broad daylight. I was about to explode. Buckle up? I wanted to buckle a noose around his neck. You bastard. You let me out. I fumbled for the door handle, trembling with rage, which only made my stutter worse. I'm calling. The CC. Cops. Luke stomped on the gas. The sports car let out a beastly roar and shot forward. The powerful acceleration pinned me to the seat. He glanced at me. "Be good. Don't make a scene." His tone was almost gentle, but the words were utterly shameless. "After we sign the papers, I'll buy you a whole truckload of burritos. T2. To hell. With your DD. Damn. Burritos." I was so mad I could barely breathe. At the entrance to City Hall, I yelled at the security guard. "Sir. HH. Help. Kidnapping." The guard pushed up his reading glasses, squinted at the impeccably dressed elite member of society in the driver's seat, then looked at me, stuffed in the passenger seat, hair a mess, flailing like a wild animal. Then, the guard broke into an incredibly kind, all-knowing smile. "TSK, kids these days. Making such a fuss just to get a license." He waved us through, an I-get-it expression on his face. Go on. Don't hold up the line." I was speechless. Help. What is wrong with this world? Does being handsome and well-dressed mean you can do whatever you want? Just as I was about to make a break for it and jump out of the car. $5 million to marry me. We divorce in 3 years, and you get half of my assets as part of our shared marital property. My hand, which had been pressing on the door, instantly recoiled. Honestly, it wasn't the $5 million. I just have a soft spot for the domineering CEO type. "You got it, boss." "No problem. Is that $5 million on the spot? Check or wire transfer?" "If it's a check, I'll need to Google the process for cashing one, since I've never seen one before. If it's a wire, could you add voluntary gift in the memo?" Wow. My sugar daddy cured my stutter. Just kidding. I had barely formed the words in my head before he had already dragged me inside to get the license. God only knows why rich people don't have to wait in line or bring their birth certificates. The rest of the process was a blur, like it was on 16x speed. Taking the photo. He practically forced me in front of the red backdrop. The photographer held up his camera. "Bride, give us a smile. A little closer." I was about to roll my eyes, but then I thought of the $5 million that was about to be mine, and I couldn't help but break into a wide grin. Luke, on the other hand, smiled like a gentle spring breeze, a perfect 8-tooth grin, his eyes so loving they could drown a person. It was as if we were a pair of star-crossed lovers, madly in love and desperate to tie the knot. Click. The flash hurt my eyes. The clerk was incredibly efficient. The official stamp came down with 2 sharp, cold thunks. 2 bright red marriage certificates were pushed in front of us. Luke calmly tucked his into the inner pocket of his suit. "PP. Pay up," I said, sticking my neck out and holding my palm open, my 5 fingers stretched as straight as I could manage, determined not to seem weak. $5 million. That's enough to buy the 3 storefronts next to the burrito stand and eat 10 egg, double crispy strip burritos every day for the rest of my life. Luke slowly pulled a slim black leather wallet from his other pocket. My heart pounded, thump, 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 in time with his movements. Here it comes. The legendary massive check. Should I Google how to cash a check right now? Or ask him to just wire it? Would a transfer that big get flagged by the bank? Just as a stream of financial advice scrolled through my brain, Luke's fingers pulled something from his wallet. It wasn't a check. It was a black card. He tossed the card onto my open palm like it was a worthless piece of scrap paper. Slap. Take it. It's a supplementary card. No limit. I held the light yet heavy card, my brain short-circuiting for a second. What happened to payment on the spot? What happened to a clean transaction? A no-limit supplementary card. It sounds impressive, but doesn't that mean I'm at his mercy? What if he's in a bad mood one day and freezes it? It's not as secure as having 5 million cash in my pocket. What? Not satisfied? You'd feel safer with cash. He leaned in, his handsome, sharp-featured face suddenly filling my vision. Mrs. Vance, you now have the entire Vance Corporation treasury at your back. 5 million? Think bigger. Think bigger, my ass. Before I could tell him off, the back of my neck was suddenly seized. This bastard was manhandling me again. All right, wifey, playtime's over. Let's go home. He took my phone, added himself as a contact, snapped a picture of us and our marriage certificate to post on his social feed, and then hauled me back into the sports car. The home of an NYC trust fund kid, it seems, is just a little bit bigger than a normal person's. TSK. It's not as exaggerated as I'd imagined. I'm really not jealous. Your room is over there, he said, pointing down the hall. There's a walk-in closet. Get whatever you need to fill it. Mrs. Davis will be here tomorrow morning. I was thinking. If you can't pay. In cash. On the spot. Maybe. Maybe we should. Just forget it. Let's get a divorce. Luke stopped and turned around. Then he leaned in close to my ear, his warm breath tickling my skin, his voice low and laced with a lazy smile. Sorry, wifey, he said, deliberately emphasizing the word. It's government issued. There's no 7-day, no questions asked return policy. My fists clenched. However, he said, changing the subject as he straightened up and casually scrolled through his phone. He nudged his chin toward me. Why don't you check your messages, wifey? Messages? Why would I check my messages? Suspicious, I pulled out my old phone with its cracked screen and unlocked it with my fingerprint. Holy Mother of God, the prince just sent me $1 million. I stared at the number, my fingers trembling like I had Parkinson's. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, daddy, grandpa, ancestor. 6 zeros after the 1. A full $1 million. There were more zeros in my bank account than in the entire city of Chicago. I shot my head up to look at Luke. He was leaning against the smooth wall, arms crossed, watching me with an amused expression. I instantly switched into sycophant mode, nodding like a bobblehead, my face plastered with the most sincere smile of my life. My voice went up an octave. SS Sugar Daddy. Oh, I mean, BB. Boss. No, HH hubby. You're so generous. Class. Now that's class. I was one step away from sliding to my knees in front of him. Rest assured. For the next 3 years, I will be your most loyal shield. Your mom is my mom. If you tell me to go east, I'll never go west. If you tell me to eat a burrito, I'll never touch a taco. Stutter or not, I had my ways of sucking up to my patron. Luke seemed amused by my shameless transformation. He let out a low laugh, his chest vibrating slightly. Glad you're satisfied, he said, straightening up as if to get back to his own business. As I was savoring the zeros on my phone, a storm of notifications started buzzing, making me scramble to open them. Chloe. Check your feed. Luke. That Luke Vance. Holy SSS. You're a headline, girl. No, wait, you're the headline on Luke Vance's social feed. I clicked it, and my best friend's shrill scream pierced my ears. Ah. Chloe. Is that you tugging on his shirt in the picture? Is that you? When did you hook up with the Prince of New York? And you got married? Reply ASAP. Confess and you'll get leniency, resist and you'll get severity. I clicked on the screenshot. It was the one Luke had just posted. I barely saw him on his phone, so how did he manage to send money and post on social media? Is this what they call a time management master? He used the photo he'd forced me to take with him, along with our marriage certificate. The caption read, "Married. Stop asking." The comments were already exploding. Leo, WTF? Luke? You actually did it? Wait. That girl in the photo. Looks kinda familiar. Holy crap. Isn't that the hot-tempered stuttering girl who called you a DDD douchebag outside the bar last time? Nate Chow, Luke, are you serious? Your wife is unique. So when you asked me to look up her work address and commute route last time, it was for Jessica Zhou, Luke. Are you insane? Your mother sets you up on blind dates and you refuse, so you just grab some random girl off the street? A stutterer, no less. Random follower A, congrats, Mr. Vance. Even though your wife has a unique style. Hello, Mrs. Vance. You're awesome, Mrs. Vance. Random follower B, is it just me? Or is Mrs. Vance kinda cute when she's rolling her eyes? Mr. Vance really has a one-of-a-kind taste. The list of likes was a mile long, filled with glittering names I usually only saw in business magazines and gossip columns. All sorts of CEOs, socialites, and heirs. User 123, isn't that the girl who was eating a burrito on the corner of XX Street this morning? User 456, holy crap. The prince is into that? The rise of the burrito avenger? The comments were still growing at a dizzying pace. My phone was so hot it felt like it was about to explode. The brunch crew group chat, 99 plus new messages. Unknown number, 10 new messages. Aunt Carol, 3 missed calls. Uncle Mike, 1 missed call. Patty the matchmaker, 5 missed calls. Hot-tempered stuttering girl? Unique? Looked up my work address and commute route? So this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing, but a premeditated act of revenge? Luke Vance. I stormed toward him. Luke turned at the sound of his name, his posture still relaxed. What? You did it, on purpose, you looked me up. So what? You cursed me out, so I'm not allowed to look you up. Just tell me if you got the $1 million or not, and if you still want the other 4. You. I was stuck, sputtering for a moment. Bizarrely, I felt like he had a point. No matter how I looked at it, I was the one who came out on top. I do. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Luke looked at my fuming yet helpless expression as if he'd discovered an amusing new toy. He suddenly reached out and gently pinched my cheek, which was puffed out with anger and embarrassment. TSK, he chuckled. You're actually kinda cute when you're all riled up. Now, you've seen the post, you've gotten your allowance, Mrs. Vance. He deliberately drew out his words, his gaze sweeping over me before landing on my chest, which was rising and falling slightly with nervousness. His eyes darkened. It's time to take care of business. Business? What business? Alarm bells went off in my head. This is gonna cost extra. Watching him approach step by step, I instinctively backed away until my back hit the cold wall with a thud. Luke's tall figure loomed over me, trapping me completely between him and the wall. He braced one hand on the wall next to my head, while the other slowly came up to my chin, the grip light but firm, allowing no resistance. What? What do? You Want? Luke lowered his head, his warm breath ghosting over my lips. To fulfill our marital duties. Those low, husky words shot through me like an electric current, sending a shiver down my spine. Fulfill marital duties? Marital my ass. I was scared out of my wits and instinctively brought my knee up. Luke reacted instantly, twisting his body to dodge, but the hand holding me loosened its grip. I took the chance to slip out from under his arm like an eel, scrambling behind the sofa and grabbing a throw pillow to shield my chest. My stutter was so bad I was practically rapping. Don't. Come. Any closer. I'll scream. Assault. I'm telling you. I'm trained. Luke stood there, raising an eyebrow at me. Trained? If you're trained, how is your stutter still so bad? He scoffed. You've got a dirty mind, though. Who has a dirty mind? Didn't you say? Marital duties? Yes, he nodded. My mother, your brand new mother-in-law, will be here in half an hour. So, as a newlywed couple, wouldn't you say our first duty is to... He paused, his eyes sweeping over my sauce-stained t-shirt, ripped jeans, and bird's nest hair. Get you cleaned up so you look like a human being? I looked down at myself, then thought about the glittering names in his social feed's comments section and the high society mother-in-law who was about to arrive. Damn it. I guess he has a point. But I couldn't lose face. I stuck my neck out. Fine, I'll get cleaned up. But you need to finish your sentences. Will it kill you? He scared the crap out of me. I thought I was about to be sacrificed to the evils of capitalism. Half an hour later. While I was still wrestling with a dress in the walk-in closet that had so many straps I couldn't tell if it was clothing or performance art, the doorbell rang downstairs, followed by a gentle but commanding female voice. Luke. My hand trembled, and one of those damn straps wrapped itself around my neck. Help me. Is the new high society wife going to make headlines on her first day for being strangled to death by a dress? Just as I was about to pass out, the closet door opened. Luke walked in, frowning. When he saw my predicament, a vein in his forehead seemed to twitch. He strode over, and with a few nimble movements, his fingers freed me from the fabric disaster. Then he quickly grabbed a much more normal-looking cream-colored dress from the rack and shoved it at me. Change. 5 minutes. He backed out and thoughtfully closed the door. I scrambled into the dress, fluffed my hair a couple of times, took a deep breath, and walked down the stairs as if I were heading to my execution. In the living room, a well-maintained woman was sipping tea elegantly. She looked up when she heard me. Her gaze was sharp and appraising, but not overly aggressive. I instinctively wanted to hide back upstairs. But Luke, that bastard, walked over as if it were the most natural thing in the world and wrapped an arm around my waist. Mom, this is Chloe. Chloe, say hi to Mom. Say Mom. My palms started sweating with nerves. My mouth opened and closed, but the word Mom rolled around in my throat for ages, and what came out instead was, chew. It's over. My image is completely destroyed. I closed my eyes in despair. The awkward silence and ridicule I expected never came. Luke's mom just blinked, then actually started to laugh. She pulled out a tissue and handed it to me. What are you so nervous about, dear? Here, wipe your face. I dazedly took the tissue. Luke's arm was still around my waist, his fingertips pressing lightly against me, as if to soothe me or remind me not to blow our cover. Mom, Chloe's a little shy, and when she gets nervous, she gets cute, right? Luke said, creating a new persona for me without batting an eye. My mother-in-law put down her teacup, her gaze shifting between the two of us, a deeper smile spreading across her face. She is quite cute. Better than those pretentious girls. She beckoned me to sit and asked some small talk questions, like about my family and what I did for a living. I stuck to the life-saving principle of smile more, talk less. I nodded or shook my head whenever possible and kept my answers short and simple to avoid my stutter giving me away. Luke played the role of the doting husband perfectly, chiming in with jokes or translating my stuttered words into sweet affections. It made my toes curl in embarrassment, but my mother-in-law seemed to be buying it completely. After about half an hour, she stood up to leave. Before she left, she took a velvet box out of her purse and pressed it into my hand. A little something for our first meeting. If this rascal ever bullies you, you tell me. I'll take care of him for you. I opened it and saw a jade bracelet of exceptional quality. It looked priceless. I Ed for a while, but the phrase "Auntie, this is too expensive" just wouldn't come out. Luke took the box for me and put his arm around my shoulder. Thanks, Mom. She loves it. Right, honey? All I could do was nod furiously. After seeing his mom off, the moment the door closed, I jumped 3 feet away and shoved the bracelet back into Luke's hands. This is too expensive. You keep it. Luke weighed the box in his hand, then casually tossed it onto the entryway table, looking at me with a half smile. It's yours now. Keep it. You're acting, though. Need some work. Work on your sister. I fumed. This is all your fault. Yes, it's my fault, he actually admitted. Then he slowly pulled out his phone. So, how about some compensation? The next second, my phone dinged again. A notification from my banking app. Luke Vance has sent you $200,000. I stared at the string of zeros, and all the curse words I was about to say got stuck in my throat. Damn it. He's corrupted me with money again. I tried my best to force down the corners of my mouth, which were desperately trying to curve into a smile, and put on a haughty "I'm not impressed" expression. I failed spectacularly. Luke looked at my contorted face, a bizarre mix of trying to smile and trying not to, and let out a snort. Wipe your drool. I subconsciously touched the corner of my mouth. It was dry. You're messing with me. Yep, I am, he admitted with infuriating nonchalance, striding into the living room. Go change into something decent. We have a thing tonight. Again? Who is it? This time? What other mom? I asked warily, hoping it wasn't a marathon of his 7 aunts and 8 uncles. Luke turned and gave me a "are you an idiot" look. It's a get-together with friends. I'm taking you to make an appearance, solidify your status as Mrs. Vance, so my mom doesn't think I just rented an actress to fool her. He paused, then added, "You're not getting paid for nothing." I just stared. Fine, whatever the sugar daddy says, goes. The thing that night was at an exclusive, high-end club. I was wearing a little Chanel dress Luke had sent over, following closely at his side, trying my best to play the part of a quiet, shy, but madly in love with Luke newlywed. As always, Luke's arm was welded to my waist. His grip was just right, intimate enough to look close, but also firm enough to steer me straight whenever I almost started walking with my arms and legs on the same side or when my eyes widened in shock at the ridiculously priced wine list. Luke, my man. You really brought her. Nice. A guy in a floral shirt with a roguish grin said as he approached us. Hey, sis-in-law. I'm Leo, the jackass from the social feed comments, he said with a grin, beating me to the punch. I nervously fidgeted with my fingers and forced a smile. Hi. Holy crap, she really stutters. Leo exclaimed as if he'd discovered a new continent, though there was no malice in his eyes. A few other men and women gathered around, their eyes full of curiosity. A woman in a red slip dress with flawless makeup sauntered over, swirling her wine glass. Her eyes shifted between Luke and me, her tone a little sour. Luke, are you serious about this? You think your mother will approve? I recognized her. It was Jessica from the social feed comments. Luke didn't even bother to look up. He took a glass of wine from a waiter, took a sip, and then said slowly, "Do I need anyone's approval to get married?" He tightened his arm around me, pulling me closer into his side in a possessive gesture. Call her Mrs. Vance. Jessica's face changed. She managed a strained smile and said nothing. Leo quickly tried to smooth things over. Mrs. Vance, Mrs. Vance. Of course. You're really one of a kind. No wonder you got our boy Luke, the eternal bachelor, to finally settle down. I'm impressed. Here, Mrs. Vance, let me toast you. He raised his glass to clink with mine. Luke reached out, took the glass from Leo's hand, and drank it in one gulp. She's allergic to alcohol. It's the thought that counts. The room instantly filled with a chorus of suggestive oaths and whistles. Damn, Luke, you're protective. I'm so jealous, I could die. Jessica's expression soured even more. I looked up at Luke's sharp jawline and felt something stir inside me. For the rest of the night, I was content to be his arm candy. While Luke drank and chatted, my job was to eat the expensive-looking fruit from the platters and offer a shy, happy smile whenever his friends glanced my way. The consequence of eating too much fruit was that I really had to pee. I had just come out of a stall in the restroom when I ran into Jessica at the sinks. Humph, stutterer, she sneered, the contempt in her voice undisguised. I really don't know what Luke sees in you. I turned on the faucet and slowly washed my hands, ignoring her. Everyone thought I wasn't good enough, and I wasn't doing much to prove them wrong. Seeing that I wasn't taking the bait, she got even more annoyed. She turned, crossed her arms, and looked me up and down. Don't think you've won just because you have a marriage license. The Vance family isn't that easy to get into. Someone like you will be kicked to the curb as soon as the novelty wears off. I turned off the water, grabbed a paper towel to dry my hands, and looked up at her with a grin. My voice was a little shaky from nerves, but I wasn't about to lose this fight. To get kicked. To the curb, you have to get in the door first. That's still better than some people whose C can't even touch the doorframe, right? Jessica probably didn't expect a stutterer like me to have such a sharp tongue. She was speechless, her face turning bright red. I couldn't be bothered with her anymore. I tossed the paper towel in the trash and turned to leave. As I reached the doorway, I saw Luke standing outside, leaning against the wall and smoking. Through the haze of smoke, he looked down at me, his eyes deep and unreadable. Did he hear all that? I suddenly felt a little guilty, like a student caught fighting by the principal. He stubbed out his cigarette, raised his hand, and very naturally tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. His cool fingertips brushed against my earlobe, sending a shiver through me. Someone giving you trouble? He asked, his voice neutral. And no, I said, trying to act calm. Just a civilized exchange of views. He let out a low laugh and didn't press the issue. He just wrapped his arm around my waist again. Let's go. We're going home. Back at his place, I kicked off my high heels, my bare feet sinking into the plush carpet with a sigh of relief. Acting is way more tiring than painting. I collapsed onto the sofa, feeling completely drained. Luke loosened his tie and sat down in the armchair next to me, watching my unladylike sprawl without a word. Once it was quiet, the atmosphere became a little charged. Especially since it was just the two of us in this huge house. The words marital duty started doing a dance in my head again. I shot up from the sofa and stammered, well. Thanks. For blocking that drink for me. And 4. Not blowing my cover. It's mutually beneficial, he said flatly. You held your own pretty well against Jessica just now, didn't you? So he did hear it. I felt a little awkward and scratched my head. Well. She started it. Good. As long as you didn't lose, he said, seemingly unconcerned. He stood up. Get some rest. I breathed a sigh of relief as I watched him walk toward the master bedroom. But he stopped at the door and turned back to look at me. By the way, he said, as if he'd just remembered something, family dinner tomorrow. My grandfather is coming over from the old estate. This performance has a sequel? Luke's lips curved into a smile, and he whispered like a devil. What else? Mrs. Vance, your value is just beginning to show. The next day, I was jolted awake by a barrage of messages on my phone. I fumbled for my phone with my eyes still closed and squinted at the screen. The brunch crew, $9.99 plus unread messages. There were also a dozen missed calls from my mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle. I was instantly half awake. Before I could fully wake up, my phone started vibrating again. It was the call of doom from my mother. I took a deep breath and answered. Before I could even get a hello out, my mom's high-pitched voice shot through the eardrum. Chloe. Is that a real marriage certificate on your social feed? Is that guy that? What's his name? Luke? Is what they're saying on the trending topics true? When did you start dating? How come we didn't hear a peep? What does his family do? How old is he? Is he a con? Mom. Slow down. I quickly cut her off, my mind racing to come up with a way to explain this colossal lie. We just started dating. Recently. His name is Luke. He's a nice guy. His family has a small business. I mumbled, feeling so guilty my stutter got worse. A small business? The trending topics are all calling him the Prince of New York. And you're still lying to me. I froze. Help me. Just then, there was a knock on the bedroom door. Luke's voice came from the other side, husky and lazy from just waking up. Wifey, you awake? Is that your mom on the phone? He said wifey so naturally that it traveled right through the phone to my mom. The other end of the line went silent. I stiffly turned my head and saw Luke leaning against the doorframe in his bathrobe, his hair slightly messy, looking unfairly handsome. He held out his hand, gesturing for the phone. I passed it to him like it was a hot potato. Luke took it and instantly switched into the perfect son-in-law mode, warm and polite. Hello, ma'am, this is Luke. Yes, it's true. I'm so sorry we didn't visit you sooner. It's my fault. Please don't blame Chloe. I was the one chasing her, and I was afraid she'd get away, so I rushed things. He continued talking as he walked into the living room, leaving me standing there in a daze. I listened as he chatted with my mom about everything from the weather to health tips, from my good qualities to his family situation. He had her completely charmed, and I could even hear her hearty laughter through the phone. About 10 minutes later, he came back with the phone and handed it to me, a victorious smile on his face. Your mom wants to talk to you. I nervously took it back. Mom. Chloe. My mom's tone had done a complete 180. That Luke is a really great kid. So mature. So sensible. Why didn't you tell me sooner? You two need to make it work. Don't be so temperamental. By the way, when can you bring him over for dinner? I'll make him my specialty. After hanging up, I looked at Luke with a complicated mix of emotions. He raised an eyebrow. Handled. I just stared. It's true what they say, successful people succeed at everything. That evening, in a private dining room, Luke's grandfather sat at the head of the table. Luke held my hand tightly as we approached. Grandpa, Dad, Mom, Uncle, other uncle. He greeted them one by one, then pulled me forward. This is Chloe. He glanced at me, giving me a look. I took a deep breath, forced my most polite smile, and tried to keep my voice steady. Hello, Grandpa. Hello, sir, ma'am. Okay, the stutter wasn't too obvious. Mr. Vance's sharp eyes rested on me for a few seconds before he spoke, his voice deep and resonant. Sit. Once we were seated, the interrogation began. Luke was my wingman the entire time. Whenever I got stuck or was asked a tricky question, he would seamlessly take over the conversation, either cleverly deflecting it or steering the topic toward how much he adored me. The second uncle asked, I hear Miss Lynn has a little trouble speaking fluently? Luke frowned. Uncle, Chloe's just a little nervous. I think it's cute. The third uncle said, Miss Lynn's current job doesn't seem to have a very stable income. What are your plans for the future? Luke wrapped an arm around my shoulder. What's mine is hers. She can do whatever she loves. If she's not happy, she can stay home and paint. I can support her. Mr. Vance hadn't said much, just quietly listening and occasionally looking at us. It wasn't until most of the dishes had been served that he suddenly looked at me and asked an unexpected question. Young lady, what do you think of Luke? The entire table went silent. My heart pounded, and my mind raced through all the standard answers: handsome, successful, gentle, considerate. But looking into the old man's eyes, which seemed to see right through everything, I couldn't bring myself to say those rehearsed lines. I held it in for a long time, my face turning red, until I finally threw caution to the wind, looked up, and said, with a stutter but with unusual sincerity, he's pretty great. Just a little expensive. Luke's chopsticks froze mid-air. The uncles looked like they were trying hard not to laugh. Just as I was wishing the ground would swallow me whole. Pfft, Mr. Vance burst out laughing, shaking his head. Expensive? Ha ha ha. Good. That's good. Finally, someone who tells the truth. He pointed at Luke. You hear that? Try to spend a little less from now on. Don't scare the girl. Luke was stunned for a moment, then he started to laugh too. He looked at me, and there was something new and unreadable in his eyes. I hear you, Grandpa. As we were leaving, Mr. Vance slipped a thick red envelope into my hand. Here, young lady, buy yourself some candy. If this rascal ever bullies you, you tell Grandpa. I'll beat him up for you. I clutched the thick envelope, completely overwhelmed, and could only nod dumbly. Thank you, Grandpa. One day, as I was passing the master bedroom, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. On a whim, I peeked through the crack. Luke hadn't gone to the office yet. His back was to the door, and he was standing in front of the full-length mirror. He seemed to have just gotten out of the shower, with only a towel loosely tied around his waist. Droplets of water trickled down his broad back and narrow waist, disappearing into the tantalizing white towel. The muscles in his shoulders and back were smooth and powerful. I gulped without realizing it. With a body like that, if Vance Corp ever went bankrupt, he could probably make a living as a stripper. Seen enough? Just as I was getting lost in the view, a low, teasing voice came from inside, making it impossible to tell if he was pleased or annoyed. I froze, my face instantly burning. I stubbornly mumbled at the door crack, who's looking at you? I was looking for Mrs. Davis. A very soft chuckle came from inside, followed by the rustle of clothes. Come in. Huh? I froze. Weren't you looking for Mrs. Davis? She took the day off. If you need something, you can tell me. His voice was clearly teasing. I forced myself to push the door open, trying my best not to look at him, but my peripheral vision still caught him buttoning up his shirt. It wasn't fully buttoned, revealing a firm chest and a hint of abs. Damn it. I quickly looked away. Actually. It's nothing. Oh. He finished buttoning his shirt and walked toward me, step by step. He leaned down slightly. Chloe, peeking comes with a fee. My face was as red as a boiled shrimp. Who was peeking? I was just passing by. Openly. I stuck my neck out, trying to cover my guilt with volume. Besides. Is it illegal to look at my own husband? The words were out before I could stop them. What the hell was I saying? Sure enough, the smile in Luke's eyes deepened. He reached out, hooked a finger around the sash of my robe, and gave it a gentle tug. Caught off guard, I stumbled forward, almost crashing into his chest. His warmth seeped through the thin fabric of his shirt, and I could even feel the rise and fall of his chest as he breathed. Husband? He repeated, the word lilting up at the end like it had a little hook. Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? His fingertips traced a path along my collarbone, sending a shiver through me. I was completely stiff, my mind a blank, aware of nothing but his scorching breath and his deep, bottomless eyes. Just as I thought he was about to do something more, he suddenly let go. There's a charity gala tonight. The driver will bring a dress by this afternoon. Get ready. With that, he walked out of the bedroom, leaving me standing there, heart racing, my legs as weak as jelly. That bastard. Always teasing and running away. He gives you a taste of sweetness and then slaps you. I clutched my wildly beating heart and silently bared my teeth at his disappearing back. That afternoon, while I was agonizing over several couture gowns that had been delivered, Luke came home early. He seemed to be in a good mood. Seeing me frowning at the dresses, he surprisingly didn't make a sarcastic comment. Instead, he walked over, ran his fingers over the row of gowns, and finally stopped at a dusty pink satin dress. This one. This one is off the shoulder. I said quietly. I have slightly sloped shoulders and wasn't very confident about them. I know, he said, holding the dress up to me. Your collarbones are nice. It's a waist to cover them. My face started to feel warm again. Did he take the wrong medicine today? He's actually complimenting me? Go try it on, he said, handing me the dress. I spent ages in the walk-in closet, but the invisible zipper on the back got stuck halfway. I couldn't get it up or down, and I was sweating with frustration. Luke. I had to call for help. The zipper's stuck. The door opened a crack. He leaned against the doorframe, a mischievous look in his eyes as he watched my struggle. You asking for my help? You. Just. Help me. I got angry. Only then did he slowly walk over. His cool fingers inevitably touched the skin on my back, sending a shiver through me. He moved very slowly, his fingertips tracing a path down my spine with agonizing patience. In the small space, the only sounds were the soft zip of the zipper and my slightly ragged breathing. I could feel his breath on the back of my neck, a ticklish sensation that made me want to shrink away. Done, he finally said, his voice a little huskier than usual. But he didn't move his hand right away. It rested on my lower back, the heat of his palm seeping through the thin fabric of the dress. In the mirror, he stood behind me, tall and imposing, almost completely enveloping me. His gaze met mine in the mirror, his eyes dark and heavy. I felt incredibly self-conscious under his stare, not knowing what to do with my hands and feet. Turn around, he said in a low voice. As if mesmerized, I slowly turned and looked up at him. He gently lifted my chin, his gaze falling to my lips. The pad of his thumb brushed against my lower lip, sending a tiny jolt of electricity through me. The lipstick color is too light, he murmured, his eyes deep, as if he were critiquing it, or maybe just looking for an excuse. My heart was beating so fast it was about to burst. Just as his face slowly drew closer, our breaths mingling, his phone rang at the most inopportune moment. The romantic atmosphere shattered instantly. He froze, his eyes clearing as he let go and took a step back. He answered the phone, his tone switching back to his usual business-like manner. Go on. It was as if the person with the burning gaze, the one who had almost lost control, wasn't him. I let out a sigh of relief, but at the same time, I felt a faint sense of disappointment. Watching him transform back into the cold, aloof Luke, I couldn't help but curse him in my head. You dog. You're all talk. If you're so bold, why did you stop? Of course, I only dared to curse him in my head. After all, my sugar daddy's moods were as unpredictable as the weather. At the charity gala, Jessica, of course, showed up like a bad penny, with a few of her obvious plastic surgery sisterhood friends in tow. Well, Mrs. Vance, you look stunning tonight. That dress. Luke picked it out, didn't he? He has such good taste, Jessica said with a smile, but her words were laced with thorns. But you'd better be careful. That satin is delicate. Don't want to get any grease stains on it. After all, old habits die hard, right? She gave me a pointed look, and a few suppressed snickers rippled through the group. I was about to retort when Luke's hand, which had been loosely resting on my waist, suddenly tightened, pulling me even closer to his side, almost into an embrace. Then, he tilted his head slightly, his cold gaze sweeping over them. My wife's habits, good or bad, are none of your business. He paused, his eyes landing on my face, instantly switching to a look of deep, cloying affection. Besides, he lowered his voice, but it was loud enough for everyone around to hear. I like her just the way she is. Real. Cute. Jessica and her friends' faces turned pale. The area around us went silent, and the snickering stopped. In the car on the way back, I leaned against the window, my mind a mess. His words, I like her just the way she is, kept replaying in my head. I knew it was an act, but it was still damn convincing. Luke seemed a little preoccupied too. He loosened his tie and closed his eyes to rest. As we neared the apartment, his phone vibrated. He opened his eyes, glanced at it, and frowned. He told the driver, "Don't go back to the apartment just yet. I need to stop by the office. There's an urgent matter to deal with." Then he looked at me. "You go on up." I nodded. The car stopped in the underground garage. I got out and walked toward the elevators. The garage was empty and quiet at night, the only sound the crisp click of my heels on the concrete. Suddenly, a figure darted out from the shadows and lunged at me. "Ah!" I screamed, dropping my evening bag. The man was clearly drunk. He reeked of alcohol, his eyes were cloudy, and he was spewing filth. "You bitch. You think you're so great now that you've hooked up with Luke Vance? He steals my project, so I'll steal his woman. One of Luke's business rivals? Taking it out on me?" I was terrified. I struggled desperately, my stutter making it impossible to even cry for help. H. Help. Let go. The drunk was incredibly strong, and he started dragging me toward a darker corner. Just then, a blinding set of headlights flashed on us. It was followed by the angry roar of an engine. Luke had come back. The car door flew open. He practically jumped out of the car and charged toward us, his face dark enough to drip water, a ferocity in his eyes I had never seen before. He grabbed the drunk by the collar and slammed a fist into his face. The movement was fast and vicious, filled with a murderous rage. The drunk cried out and fell to the ground. Luke didn't stop. He kicked him again, completely losing his usual calm composure. "You touch her? You're asking to die." His voice was hoarse and cold, filled with a chilling menace. I collapsed to the ground, watching the out-of-control Luke, my heart pounding. Was this also part of the act? Security guards quickly arrived and subdued the wailing drunk. Only then did Luke stop, panting. He rushed over to me, knelt down, and his fingers trembled as he checked me over. "Are you hurt anywhere?" His eyes were still filled with a mix of rage and fear, and there were beads of sweat on his forehead. I just shook my head numbly, staring at him, at the way he had lost control for my sake, unable to say a word. He swept me up into his arms, holding me tightly against his chest, and strode toward the elevator. Back at the apartment, he placed me on the sofa and brought out the first aid kit, insisting on personally cleaning the small scrape on my hand. Honestly, if he didn't treat it soon, the wound was going to heal on its own. Watching his profile as he carefully disinfected and bandaged my hand, my heart melted. "Luke," I said softly, my voice still a little shaky. You scared me. And you were incredibly hot." I didn't dare say the last part. He was silent for a moment, then put down the cotton swab and suddenly reached out, gently pulling me into his arms. "I was scared too," he murmured into my hair, his voice low and laced with an almost imperceptible huskiness. "I won't let you be alone again." Luke held me tight, his arms wrapped around my shoulders with enough force to feel like he was trying to merge me with his bones. My cheek was pressed against his shirt, and I could clearly hear the pounding of his heart, thump, 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 which set my own heart racing. The cool, crisp scent he always wore, now mixed with the lingering ferocity from his anger, was surprisingly intoxicating. I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. I'm sorry," I mumbled into his chest, my voice muffled. "F4. Causing you trouble." A soft sigh came from above me. He tightened his grip, his chin rubbing against the top of my head. "Don't be silly. I'm the one who wasn't careful enough." He paused, his voice deepening. "It won't happen again." That sounded an awful lot like a promise. That familiar feeling of unease started to creep back in. I tried to sit up straight. It was nothing, really. Just a little scare. You don't need to worry about me. Your work." But he didn't let go. Instead, as I looked up, he met my gaze. The living room was only lit by a single floor lamp, casting long, deep shadows across his sharp features and making his eyes seem incredibly deep. "Chloe," he said, using my full name. His thumb unconsciously stroked the spot on my arm where the drunk had grabbed me. It tickled. "I don't want to think about work right now." His gaze dropped to my lips, then slowly moved back to my eyes. The air suddenly felt thick, the temperature climbing. My throat went dry, and I licked my lips without thinking. His eyes darkened, and his Adam's apple bobbed. Then what? What do you want to do?" I asked, a stupid question born from a fried brain. Luke let out a low laugh. He leaned in, his warm breath almost scalding my ear, his voice low, husky, and full of seduction. "You." My heart skipped a beat, and my face burst into flames. You. I stuttered, my limbs turning to jelly. Purr. Before the word pervert could escape, he closed the small distance between us, his warm lips pressing firmly against mine. All sound was cut off. The world went silent. The only things I could feel were the soft, demanding pressure on my lips and the overwhelming scent of him. My mind went completely blank. I stared wide-eyed, forgetting to breathe. So, this is what kissing is like. His kiss wasn't gentle. It was almost punishing, his teeth nibbling at my lips as he coaxed them open. His tongue swept inside, tangling with mine, demanding and relentless, stealing every last bit of air. He kissed me until I was dizzy and breathless, my body limp. I could only cling to the front of his shirt, my fingertips trembling. Just when I thought I was about to suffocate, he pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against mine, our noses touching. Our breaths mingled, hot and ragged. I gasped for air, my vision blurry, my lips numb and swollen. Can't even remember to breathe? He chuckled, his voice raspy. His thumb gently wiped the corner of my wet lips. Looks like you have a lot to learn, stutters. I was mortified and furious. I wanted to curse him out, but I couldn't even form a coherent sound, only a few broken whimpers. He leaned in again, this time placing a feather-light peck on my lower lip, as if to soothe me, or maybe because he wasn't finished. "Tonight," he whispered against my forehead, his voice laced with a smile and a heavy dose of suggestion, "I'll teach you." Slowly. And with that, he kissed me again, deeper and more lingering than before. His other hand started to wander, sliding down my back. The heat of his palms seared through the thin fabric of my dress, sending shivers down my spine. He kissed me until I was lost, my reason completely gone. My body turned to water, and I could only follow his lead, sinking and surfacing in a strange and powerful tide of emotion. In a daze, I felt him lift me up and carry me toward the bedroom. When he placed me on the soft bed, a sliver of clarity returned. I pressed my hands against his chest as he lowered himself onto me, making one last stand. Wait. We haven't discussed the price. Luke froze, propped up above me, his dark eyes fixed on mine. After a moment, he let out a choked laugh. "Chloe, you are something else." He leaned down and bit my collarbone as if in punishment. It wasn't hard, but a jolt of pleasure shot through me. "My entire being is practically yours, and you're still worried about your little fee?" He took my hands from his chest and guided them downward, his voice impossibly hoarse. "Feel that? Tonight, we're settling this debt a different way." My hand, caught in his, felt like it had been branded the moment it made contact. My fingers curled instinctively, but he held them firmly in place. Through the thin fabric of his trousers, the intense heat and startling sighs were terrifyingly clear. My mind went blank with a roar, and all the blood in my body rushed to my face, making me dizzy. You. Peeper. The word pervert was stuck in my throat, refusing to come out, which probably sounded more like a coy invitation than a protest. The darkness in Luke's eyes deepened. He leaned down and kissed me again, swallowing all my feeble objections. This kiss was even more intense than the last, turning my world upside down, stealing my breath until my body went limp and I could only manage soft whimpers. His kisses trailed downward, his wet lips leaving a trail of ticklish heat and faint stings on my neck. I couldn't help but tilt my head back, my fingers unconsciously tangling in his thick, dark hair. He easily unzipped the expensive gown, and the cool air on my skin raised goosebumps. His hand, scorching hot, rested on my waist, slowly caressing me, igniting little fires wherever he touched. Wait. A tiny shred of my sanity was still fighting, my voice trembling. This wasn't in the contract. Luke paused, propping himself up to look down at me. A half-smile played on his lips as the pad of his thumb gently brushed against my slightly swollen lower lip. "We're adding a new clause," he said, his voice husky and magnetic. "Marital relations. It's one of the obligations." What's the salary?" I blurted out, then immediately wanted to bite my tongue off. Was I really haggling at a time like this? Luke froze for a second, then let out a low laugh. He lowered his head, his nose brushing against mine, their breaths mingling as he teased, "I already paid the deposit. Weren't you satisfied, Mrs. Vance?" Was he talking about the kiss? Or the $2 million? I was speechless. "Apparently not," he answered for me, then bit my collarbone again, a little harder this time. I couldn't help but let out a soft moan. "Tonight." His lips found mine again, and he murmured, "Performance bonus." Doubled. All my protests and negotiations were silenced. My consciousness drifted in and out, like a small boat in a storm, tossed about by his rhythm. A strange tide of passion washed over me, so intense it was frightening, yet fatally alluring. He was like a patient hunter, exploring his territory inch by inch, not missing a single reaction. His fingertips seemed to carry an electric charge, igniting one unfamiliar flame after another. I bit my lower lip, trying to suppress the embarrassing sounds I was making, but he pried my teeth apart, swallowing all my broken whimpers. "Let me hear you," he commanded, his breath ragged, his voice impossibly hoarse. "I want to hear you." The final barrier was removed. The moment our skin touched, I couldn't help but tremble. His body was incredibly hot. Where we were pressed together, I could feel a distinct heartbeat, and I couldn't tell if it was his or mine. "Scared?" he asked, sensing my stiffness. He slowed down, his forehead resting against mine, his breathing heavy. My instinct was to be stubborn. "Who's scared?" He chuckled softly and kissed the corner of my eye. "Good girl. Relax." I instantly curled up, my nails digging into the muscle of his arm without me realizing it. "It hurts." My voice was tinged with tears. Luke stopped, his breathing heavy. A bead of sweat rolled down his forehead and landed on my neck, shockingly hot. He coaxed me with extreme gentleness. "Shoo, good girl." My clumsy attempts to cooperate were met with a more intense response. The rhythm spiraled out of control, as suffocating as a hurricane. Broken moans and heavy gasps intertwined, the air thick with the sound of passion. In a daze, all I could do was cling to his broad back as if it were the only piece of driftwood in a storm, letting him guide me through the tumultuous sea of desire. I don't know how long it was before I heard him whisper my name in my ear, his voice hoarse. "Chloe." His voice was filled with a fiery, indescribable emotion. The next second, my mind went completely white. My consciousness slowly surfaced from the deep sea, heavy and blurred. The air was filled with a strange yet familiar scent, a musky, intimate aroma mixed with Luke's usual cool, woody cologne, and something else. The sweet, cloying smell of sex. I snapped my eyes open. I was met with the sight of a lavish crystal chandelier and a strong, masculine arm draped over my waist. The memories of last night flooded my mind like a tidal wave, every detail painfully clear. His kisses, his touch, his scorching body heat, his heavy breathing, and all those blush-inducing positions and whispers. My face instantly turned beet red, and even my toes curled in embarrassment. I really slept with Luke. I lay there stiffly, not daring to move, trying to gently lift the heavy arm off my waist. The moment I moved, a lazy, sexy groan came from behind me, husky with sleep. "You're awake?" Warm breath fanned the back of my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. Not only did the arm not loosen, it tightened, pulling me back into a warm, solid chest. The close contact made me acutely aware of his morning state. I froze, my scalp tingling. "Why you?" My stutter was worse than usual, and my voice was raspy. Let go." "Let go?" He chuckled from behind me, his chest vibrating. His lips brushed against my shoulder blade. "Use me and then toss me aside?" "Mrs. Vance, who taught you to be so ruthless?" His voice was lazy and teasing, and it made my ears burn. Who used you?" I retorted, trying to use my tone to cover my guilt. It was you." "You who?" "I who what?" He finished for me, his hands sliding down to my lower abdomen, his palms scorching hot. That final was drawn out and dangerously magnetic. My face felt hot enough to fry an egg. This bastard. How can he say things like that with a straight face? "Gee, get up." He finally let me go and sat up. The silk comforter slipped down, revealing a perfectly sculpted back and a narrow waist, marked with a few distinct scratch marks. My eyes darted away guiltily. Luke got out of bed, walking barefoot on the carpet toward the bathroom, completely unconcerned about his state of nudity. Does having a good body give you the right to be so shameless? Okay, fine, it does. Listening to the sound of the shower, I wrapped myself in the blanket and sat up, looking at the telltale marks on my body in a daze. By the time Luke came out with a towel around his waist, I had scrambled into a robe and was sitting primly on the edge of the bed, trying to project an air of nothing happened last night. He toweled his hair, glanced at me, and a smirk played on his lips. "Is there any part of you I haven't seen?" What are you covering up for? I was speechless. Can someone please sew his mouth shut? He tossed the towel aside, walked to the walk-in closet, and quickly returned with a new set of women's underwear and a casual outfit, which he threw at me. Get dressed. After breakfast, I'm taking you somewhere. Where? I asked warily. To sell you, he said without turning around, buttoning his shirt. You're worth a lot, stutters. I wanted to throw a pillow at him. Breakfast, prepared by Mrs. Davis, was exceptionally lavish. I buried my head in my food, not daring to look at the impeccably dressed, deceptively civilized man across from me. He, however, was perfectly at ease, even placing a shrimp dumpling in my bowl. Eat up. You need to replenish your energy. I almost choked on my porridge. My phone buzzed. I picked it up and saw a flood of messages from my best friend. Chloe. You're famous. Link, NYC Prince Luke Vance and mystery newlywed wife make a stunning appearance at charity gala, dispelling rumors with their intimacy. Link, unmasking Mrs. Vance, rumored to be an independent artist, a true love story. There were several candid shots, one of Luke blocking a drink for me with his arm around my waist, another of him leaning in to talk to me with a smile in his eyes, and even one of him wiping the corner of my mouth. The angles were so good, they actually made us look like a real, loving couple. The comments section was even more ridiculous. Ah, the way the prince looks at his wife is so sweet. Mrs. Vance is so beautiful. So elegant. I heard someone gave her trouble last night, and the prince personally took care of it. A real-life hero. I ship it so hard. This is a real-life fairy tale romance. My mouth twitched. The internet has a wild imagination. What are you so engrossed in? Luke's voice suddenly came from across the table. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone into my porridge. He had somehow moved to my side, taken my phone, and was now scanning the screen with a raised eyebrow. Not bad shots. He handed the phone back to me and, in the same motion, bent down and kissed the corner of my mouth, which still had a smudge of custard on it. A reward. I was completely petrified. Mrs. Davis came out with a fruit platter, saw the scene, and her face crinkled into a smile. Sir and Madam are so affectionate. Luke replied without batting an eye, yes, she's quite clingy. Who's clingy? Do you have no shame? After breakfast, he did indeed stuff me into his car. We ended up at a high-end art gallery. I looked at him, bewildered. Your exhibition. You've always wanted one, right? He unbuckled his seatbelt and turned to me. I've already spoken with the gallery director. The space is yours for a month. I was stunned. I had secretly submitted my portfolio before, but I was always rejected for not being well known enough. How did he know? And he'd already arranged it? How? How can I? Thank you. I was at a loss for words, my heart feeling full and tingly. Thank me? He leaned over, unbuckling my seatbelt, his fingers brushing my collarbone in a way that seemed anything but accidental. His eyes held a meaningful glint. Just perform well tonight. The little bit of gratitude I'd felt instantly went to the dogs. Pervert. Only for you, he grinned like a devil, opening my car door. Go on, Mrs. Vance. Go earn some money to support me. I got out of the car, my face flushed, and watched his sports car disappear into the traffic. My mind was a mess. It felt like I had fallen into a trap, but I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to climb out. Just as I walked into the gallery, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Luke. Luke, forgot to mention. Luke, last night's performance bonus. Doubled. Luke, wire transfer, 4 million. 00. Followed by another message. Luke, next time, we'll try a different performance project. The bonus is even better. I stared at the string of zeros and the suggestive message, and my face turned completely red. Asshole. Who wants to try that? The preparations for the exhibition went 100 times smoother than I could have ever imagined. The gallery director greeted me personally, his attitude so polite it made me wonder if I'd suddenly discovered a long-lost billionaire father. "Mrs. Vance, your work has such spirit. This Urban Impressions series is particularly moving. It would be perfect for the main hall," the director said, pointing at the floor plan with a beaming smile. I looked at the prime, expensive real estate and my stutter got worse. Thank you. But Mr. Vance specifically instructed us that your wishes are our top priority, the director added, as if sensing my unease. He said you have your own ideas about the layout and that we are to give you our full support. My heart skipped a beat. Luke had even taken care of that. Over the next few days, I practically lived at the gallery. Luke didn't show up again, but his presence was everywhere. Every afternoon at 3 o'clock sharp, a high-end afternoon tea would be delivered to the gallery, accompanied by a printed card, "From Mr. Vance, don't forget to feed my artist." It was signed with a flamboyant, cursive L. The way the staff looked at me grew more and more suggestive by the day. While I grumbled to myself about how flashy and controlling he was, I had to admit that the tiramisu was ridiculously delicious. On the last day of setup, I was on a ladder adjusting the lighting for a painting when my foot suddenly slipped. "Ah!" I cried out, but the pain I expected never came. A strong arm caught me around the waist, lifting me safely off the ladder. A familiar scent enveloped me. Still shaken, I looked up and met Luke's slightly annoyed gaze. "Chloe, do you really need to be doing this kind of work yourself?" he said, his brow furrowed, his tone sharp. "What if you had fallen?" I'm not that delicate," I said stubbornly, though my heart was still pounding, whether from the scare or from his sudden appearance, I couldn't tell. He set me down, but his hand remained on my waist as he surveyed the gallery. "It looks all right." "Just all right?" I poured my heart and soul into this. I was about to argue, but he suddenly leaned in, his nose close to my neck, and took a soft sniff. "You've got paint on you," he murmured, his breath tickling my skin, making me flinch. Let go. Everyone's watching." I protested quietly, my cheeks burning. The surrounding staff had already tactfully looked away, pretending to be busy. "Let them watch," he said, not only refusing to let go but leaning in even closer to whisper in my ear. "Am I breaking the law by holding my own wife? There he goes again." I glared at him, only to meet his smiling eyes, which clearly reflected my own blushing, flustered face. Pathetic. On the day of the opening, my palms were sweating with nerves. I was wearing a custom-made pearlescent white gown that Luke had sent over. It made my skin look even fairer, and the cut was perfect, not too formal, but elegant enough for the occasion. As my +1, Luke naturally had to be there. Dressed in a black, subtly patterned suit, he stood beside me, exuding an air of nobility that drew more attention than I, the actual star of the show, did. I'm nervous," I whispered to him, my fingers unconsciously fiddling with the hem of my dress. He turned, very naturally took my hand, and gently tickled my palm with his fingertip. "What's there to be afraid of? Your paintings are great." He paused, then a smile touched his lips as he lowered his voice. "And if it's a flop, who cares? Your husband's rich. I'll fund 10, 20 more exhibitions for you. We'll keep going until you're famous." I just stared at him. His words were obnoxious, but strangely, my frayed nerves actually started to calm down. During the media interviews, most of the questions were about my creative inspiration and process. Until one reporter turned the microphone to Luke. "Mr. Vance, you're known for being very private. Why have you been so supportive of your wife's artistic career? Is it because of love?" All eyes in the room instantly focused on us. I held my breath, terrified he was going to say something like, "I have too much money and time on my hands," or mention the performance bonus. Luke didn't let go of my hand. He faced the cameras, his expression unusually warm and serious. "I support her because she deserves it," he said, glancing at me, his eyes deep. Her talent and hard work deserve to be seen by more people. I just provided an opportunity. The rest, she earned all by herself. He paused, his voice carrying through the microphones across the entire gallery, clear and confident. As for love. He paused again, and my heart hung in the balance. Then, I saw him smile at the cameras, a smile so dazzling it blinded everyone. My wife is a bit shy. We'll discuss that question in private. The room erupted in a wave of good-natured laughter and sighs of admiration. My face turned completely red. He held my hand so tightly I couldn't pull it away. The exhibition was a surprising success. Several of the more expensive pieces were sold on the opening day, one of them to a very influential collector. I looked at the sales list, feeling a little dazed. Was it? Was it you? Who arranged for people to buy them? I couldn't help but ask Luke. He was on his tablet, dealing with emails. He looked up at my question and raised an eyebrow. Chloe, have a little faith in yourself, will you? Those paintings, he said, putting down his tablet and walking over. He tapped a finger on the most expensive one on the list, Alleyway in the Morning Light, a painting of the old alley I had lived in for 20 years, full of life and memories. Are worth that price. In fact, you sold them for too cheap. My heart stirred. Are really? I never make a losing deal, he snorted, pinching my cheek. So, Mrs. Vance, you're a little rich woman now. The joy of the successful exhibition hadn't even sunk in when my mom called. Her voice was excited and urgent. Chloe. You and Luke were on TV. Oh my, you two look so perfect together. By the way, when are you free? You should bring him over for dinner. Your father's been talking about it for days. I covered the phone and looked nervously at Luke, who was reading documents on the sofa. I mouthed the words to him, and my mom wants us to come over for dinner. Luke looked up from his documents, saw my helpless expression, raised an eyebrow, and held out his hand. I dazedly passed him the phone. He took it and instantly switched into his warm, humble, future son-in-law persona. Mom. Yes, I saw. Thank you for the compliments. Of course. Dinner? That sounds wonderful. Whenever is convenient for you and Dad, Chloe and I are free. I watched, mesmerized, as he effortlessly arranged the weekend dinner with my mom, charming her with just a few words until I could hear her exclaim, "Oh, it's a date then. I'll make you my special braised pork." After hanging up, he handed the phone back to me with a half smile. Scared already? I looked miserable. My dad. You used to be a kickboxer. Luke froze for a second, then burst out laughing. He reached out, pulled me into his arms, and ruffled my hair. Don't worry, he said teasingly. When a son-in-law visits, he has to be prepared to take a beating. Besides, he leaned in, nibbling on my earlobe, his voice low and warm, for you, it's worth it. My heart, once again, traitorously skipped a beat. The weekend arrived in a flash. Standing at the bottom of my parents' old apartment building, I was more nervous than when I first met Luke's grandfather. The gifts we were carrying were all picked out by Luke, expensive but thoughtful, catering perfectly to my dad's little hobbies. Deep breaths, Luke said, taking my hand. His palm was warm and dry. I'm here. His words had a magical effect, and my racing heart actually calmed down a bit. I knocked on the door. It swung open to reveal my mom's beaming smile and my dad's feigned seriousness, though his eyes couldn't hide his curiosity. Dad, Mom, sorry to intrude, Luke said with a slight bow, perfectly polite. Oh, Luke, come in, come in. Have a seat. My mom enthusiastically pulled him inside, completely ignoring me. My dad coughed, looked Luke up and down, his eyes sweeping over the expensive suit and the high-end gifts, and his brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. Oh no. My dad hates extravagance. My palms started sweating again. At the dinner table, my mom kept piling food onto Luke's plate, asking him all sorts of questions. Luke handled it all with grace, his answers respectful but not sycophantic. He even managed to make my mom laugh a few times. My dad didn't say much, just quietly drank his alcohol and occasionally glanced at Luke. After a few drinks, my dad finally put down his glass and looked at Luke. "So, Luke." "Yes, Dad," Luke replied, putting down his chopsticks and sitting up straight, ready to listen. "Your family. What kind of business are you in?" My dad asked directly. "Dad." I couldn't help but interject. Luke gently patted my leg under the table, signaling me to relax. "We're mainly in real estate and finance," Luke answered simply, without a hint of showing off. "Oh," my dad nodded, taking a sip of his drink. "Big business. Lots of schmoozing, I bet?" "It's manageable. I attend the necessary events, but I don't really like pointless socializing," Luke answered flawlessly. "I'd rather spend my time with family and Chloe." As he said this, he very naturally placed a piece of food in my bowl. My mom was grinning from ear to ear. My dad's expression softened, but he wasn't done. "Our Chloe, she's a straight shooter. A bit of a temper sometimes, and her speech is a little choppy." "Dad." My face turned red. "I think it's great," Luke cut in quickly, turning to look at me with a smile in his eyes. "It's real. It's cute. I like her just the way she is." My heart started to race again. My dad stared at him for a few seconds, as if trying to gauge the sincerity of his words. After a moment, he suddenly picked up the liquor bottle and filled Luke's glass to the brim. "Have a drink with me." I tensed up. My dad can drink anyone under the table. Luke didn't flinch. He picked up his glass. "Of course, Dad. To you." What followed was a drinking contest between the two men. My dad poured glass after glass, and Luke met him drink for drink without his expression changing once. He even managed to refill my mom's teacup and peel a shrimp for me in between. I watched them go back and forth, watched my dad try to get him drunk while he maintained his polite smile, watched him occasionally send me a reassuring glance. Something inside me suddenly felt very, very soft. By the end of the meal, the way my dad looked at Luke had completely changed. There was even a hint of admiration. "Not bad, kid. You can hold your liquor," my dad said, slurring his words a little as he slapped Luke on the shoulder. "You should come over more often." "I will, Dad." "Definitely," Luke replied with a smile. Other than his ears being a little red, he seemed perfectly fine. As we were leaving, my mom pulled me aside, slipped a red envelope into my hand, and whispered, "Luke is a good kid. He's mature, and he's good to you. I can finally rest easy." I looked at the thick envelope in my hand, and my nose started to tingle. In the car on the way back, Luke leaned against the seat, his eyes closed, looking a little tired. I looked at his sharp profile and couldn't help but ask quietly, Are you okay? You drank so much." He opened his eyes. They were a little bloodshot from the alcohol, but they were bright. He suddenly reached out, pulled me closer, and rested his chin on the top of my head, his voice husky. "I'm fine." After a moment of silence, he suddenly said my name. "Chloe." "The burrito stand downstairs from your parents' place," he paused. "It looks like it's still there." I was confused. Why was he suddenly talking about that? "Next time," he murmured, his voice lazy from the alcohol and tinged with an almost imperceptible tenderness, "want to go with me?" "Okay," I heard myself say, my voice a little hoarse. He seemed to smile, and his arm around me tightened. The next morning, I woke up starving. I was so nervous last night I barely ate anything. The spot next to me was empty and cold. I rubbed my eyes and walked out of the bedroom, only to be met with the smell of something burning. My heart sank. I shuffled to the kitchen doorway. There was Luke, in an expensive silk robe, frantically battling a black, charred object in a frying pan. The counter was a mess of eggshells and spilled flour. Mrs. Davis stood by, looking like she wanted to intervene but didn't dare, her face a mask of pained restraint. I was dumbfounded. What are you doing? Luke turned at the sound of my voice, a smudge of flour on his forehead, his expression a mix of frustration and embarrassment. Making burritos. He tried to scrape the black lump out of the pan, but it just broke apart and stuck to the bottom. He stared at the pan in silence, his jaw tight. I couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. So there is something the Prince of New York can't do. Luke shot me a death glare. I immediately suppressed my laughter, but my shoulders were still shaking. He threw down the spatula, crossed his arms, and glared at me. What are you laughing at? Come help. I slowly shuffled over, took the spatula from him, and looked at the disastrous pan. Maybe we should just order takeout. No, he refused flatly. Are you going to eat it or not? I looked at his stubborn expression, which screamed, I refuse to be defeated by a damn burrito, and that soft spot in my heart swelled again. I'll eat it, I nodded, then instructed him, why you go outside first. He raised an eyebrow. You don't want me here? I'm afraid you'll blow up. The kitchen, I said honestly. Mrs. Davis nodded vigorously in agreement. Luke was speechless. He was eventually escorted out of the kitchen by me and Mrs. Davis. Half an hour later, when I came out with 2 plates of barely presentable homemade breakfast burritos, Luke was sitting at the dining table reading the financial section of the newspaper. He had resumed his usual air of nobility, if you ignored the suspicious grease stain on his robe. I pushed a plate in front of him. He put down the paper, looked at the mediocre-looking burrito, then at me, and picked up his chopsticks to take a bite. How is it? I asked, a little eagerly. It wasn't as good as the street food version, but I thought I'd done a decent job. He chewed slowly, swallowed, and then commented, it's all right. That's it? I pouted. But, he added, his gaze falling on the corner of my mouth, it's more appetizing than last night's dinner. It took me a second to realize what he meant, and my face instantly turned bright red. Pervert. He let out a low laugh, reached out, and gently wiped a smudge of sauce from the corner of my mouth with his thumb, then very naturally popped it into his own mouth and licked it clean. The movement was so smooth, so shamelessly intimate. My face grew even hotter, my heart started to pound, and the burrito in my hands suddenly lost all its flavor. This man. He's too good at this. After the exhibition, my life seemed to return to normal. If you ignored the fact that there was now another person in my bed. Luke was still incredibly busy, but no matter how late he worked, he always came home to sleep. Yes, in the master bedroom. My guest room had been purely decorative ever since that night. His excuse was, fulfilling marital duties requires sharing a bed. I tried to protest. Sleeping together. Every night. Is affecting my creative inspiration. He was buttoning his shirt at the time. He turned and gave me a half smile. Last night, when you were sprawled on top of me sketching, your inspiration seemed to be flowing just fine, didn't it? I was speechless. That was an accident. I couldn't find my sketchbook. And I didn't even finish the sketch in the end. Anyway, my protest was denied. Over time, I got used to having a human furnace next to me. I even found it a little hard to sleep when he was away on business trips or out late. Oh no. I think I'm the frog in the slowly boiling water. One day, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a curator I greatly admired. He said he had seen my work at the exhibition and wanted to invite me to participate in an international group show for young artists. It was an incredible opportunity. I was so excited I could barely speak. When Luke came home that night, I couldn't wait to tell him the good news. He didn't seem surprised. He took off his jacket and loosened his tie. Yeah, I know. I froze. How? Did you? No? He walked to the liquor cabinet to pour a drink and glanced at me. The curator contacted my secretary first. It was forwarded to me. So that's how. It made sense. For an exhibition of that level, the organizers would definitely consider the artist's backgrounds and connections. The title of Mrs. Vance was proving to be quite useful. My initial excitement cooled a little. I bit my lip. So. Do you approve? He walked over with his drink and handed me a glass of warm water. Why wouldn't I? Won't you think? I'm using your reputation? I asked quietly, feeling a little anxious. I still wanted to make it on my own merit. Luke scoffed as if I'd said something ridiculous and flicked my forehead. Chloe, your art is worth it. It has nothing to do with me being Luke Vance. He took a sip of his drink, his tone casual but firm. They just have better taste than most and saw your value early on. Go paint with confidence, he said, leaning in close. The smell of alcohol mixed with his cool scent was intoxicating. The Vance name is there for you to use, isn't it? My heart settled back into my chest, and I couldn't help but smile. However, he changed the subject, his fingertips hooking a strap of my pajamas and giving it a gentle tug. His eyes darkened. What about my payment? There he goes again. I blushed and slapped his hand away. Be serious. We're talking about work. I am being serious, he said, playing the rogue with a straight face. I'm collecting my rightful compensation as both a husband and an investor. With that, he swept me up into his arms and headed for the bedroom. Hey. I haven't agreed yet. Objection overruled, he said, kicking the bedroom door open and tossing me onto the soft bed. He leaned over me, his lips finding mine as he murmured, just collecting a little interest in advance. Preparing for the group show was more draining than I had anticipated. I spent almost all my time in the studio, covered in paint, my hair a mess. Luke had a few complaints about this, grumbling that I was cutting into his duty-fulfilling time. But the afternoon tea and late-night snacks still arrived at the studio like clockwork every day. The accompanying cards became increasingly flashy. Mr. Vance asks, in Mrs. Vance's heart today, who comes first, art or her husband? Mr. Vance files a complaint, left alone for over 12 hours. Compensation is required. Attached was a photo of him in a robe, leaning against the headboard and reading documents, his collar loose, his gaze lazy, and looking utterly delectable. I would blush and quickly hide the cards, terrified someone might see them. This man was getting more and more shameless. Halfway through, I hit a wall. I couldn't get the colors right for one of the paintings. I was so frustrated I almost threw my palette across the room. When Luke came home that night, he saw me tearing my hair out in front of the canvas. He didn't say anything, just went to take a shower first. Then he brought me a glass of milk and pulled me away from the easel. Take a break. I slumped onto the floor, hugging my knees. I can't get it right. He sat down next to me, our legs touching, the warmth seeping through the thin fabric of our clothes. What's wrong? He asked calmly. I pointed at the colors, rambling on about what was wrong, how it should work in theory but just wasn't coming out right. He listened quietly, occasionally humming in agreement. I knew he didn't understand any of it, but just talking about it made me feel a little better. When I finished, I sighed and buried my face in my knees. After a moment, I felt his fingers gently combing through my messy hair. How about I have the gallery lend you their Monet's water lilies tomorrow? You can take a look, he said suddenly. I shot my head up. Huh? But that painting was the gallery's crown jewel. It was priceless. You couldn't just borrow it. Looking at the original's light and shadow, and the color transitions, might give you some inspiration, he said, as casually as if he were suggesting borrowing a magazine. I was speechless. Is this the power of capital? And no. That's okay. I quickly shook my head. I'll try to figure it out myself. He looked at me and didn't insist. He just handed me the milk. Then drink this and go to sleep. When your mind is foggy, you'll only make it worse. That night, for once, he didn't bother me. He just held me in his arms, patting my back gently, like he was comforting a child. I found a comfortable spot in his arms, breathing in his reassuring scent, and my chaotic thoughts slowly began to settle. In a half-dreaming state, a spark of inspiration suddenly hit me. I knew what the problem was. I shot up, ready to rush to the studio. But Luke pulled me back into his arms, holding me tight. Go to sleep, he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep, his tone firm. You can paint when the sun comes up. But my inspiration. It won't run away, he said, kissing the top of my head. And if it does, it's fine. Your husband will buy you a new one. His words were so ridiculously rich, but strangely comforting. I snuggled into his arms, closed my eyes again, and quickly fell asleep. The group show was a huge success. My work was even featured in several prestigious art publications, with critics describing it as full of spirit and having a vibrant, delicate touch. I started getting independent collaboration offers, no longer just riding on the coattails of being Mrs. Vance. After the busy period, I finally had a chance to breathe. But Luke seemed to get even busier. He came home very late for several nights in a row, smelling faintly of alcohol. One night, I was curled up on the sofa watching a movie, waiting for him. I ended up falling asleep. In a daze, I felt myself being lifted. I opened my eyes and smelled the strong scent of alcohol on him, heavier than usual. Did I wake you? He murmured, placing me on the bed. He lay down next to me and hugged me from behind, his chin resting in the crook of my neck, his breath hot. Why did you drink so much? I turned to face him, a little worried. In the dark, his eyes were bright with intoxication, and he stared at me without blinking. A work thing, he said simply, his fingers stroking my back. Oh, I said, about to get up to get him a glass of water. But he held me tight, not letting me move. Chloe, he said suddenly, using my full name. Someone told me today, he said slowly, his words slurring a little from the alcohol, that Mrs. Vance is getting famous now. Her wings are strong. She might just fly away one day. That's nonsense. Is it? He whispered, his forehead resting against mine, our noses touching. The smell of alcohol mixed with his own scent, trapping me completely. Then tell me. His lips brushed against mine as he spoke, his voice impossibly hoarse. Where do I rank in your heart now? I froze. I never thought he would care about something like that. Looking into his eyes, so close to mine, filled with a hint of uncertainty and stubbornness, my heart completely melted. This man, who could command the world, was actually feeling insecure because of a casual remark. I reached out, gently cupped his face, and leaned in to give him a soft kiss on the lips. Then, I looked into his eyes and, despite my stutter, I said, word for word, with all the sincerity I could muster. Hubby is number one. Luke seemed to stiffen for a second. The next moment, it was as if two dark flames had been lit in his eyes. He flipped over, pinning me beneath him, and his kisses rained down, fierce and desperate, laced with the strong taste of alcohol and an almost out-of-control urgency. Say it again, he panted, nibbling at my collarbone, his hands urgently fumbling with my pajamas. Hubby. My voice was weak and broken as he worked his magic. Good girl. Tonight's performance bonus is 10 times the usual. The night was still young. In a daze, I heard him whisper in my ear, over and over, his voice hoarse and tender. Mine. No one is allowed to take you away. The consequence of a hangover was that neither of us could get up the next morning. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the curtains, stinging my eyes. I whimpered and buried my face in my pillow, only to find myself pressed against a warm chest. If you're awake. Stop. Pretending. My voice was hoarse, and I gave him a shove. He kept his eyes closed, but he expertly caught my hand and brought it to his lips, nibbling on my fingertip. His voice was lazy and slurred. Mrs. Vance, a tenfold bonus isn't that easy to earn. You have to let the employee recover. I instantly remembered certain parts of last night, and my face flushed. I pulled my hand back and kicked him. Pervert. The movement made my whole body ache as if I'd been run over by a truck. He chuckled and opened his eyes. They were still bloodshot, but he looked vibrant and clearly in a good mood. He propped himself up on his side and looked at me, his other hand playfully twirling a strand of my hair. Hungry? Should I ask Mrs. Davis to make some porridge? I want tofu pudding from Wang's. Downstairs. Salty, with extra chili oil and dried shrimp, I mumbled, ordering him around out of habit. The moment I said it, I regretted it. Is this guy really the type to run errands for tofu pudding? Sure enough, he raised an eyebrow. Ordering me around? I chickened out and burrowed into the covers. Then. I'll order. Before the word takeout could escape, he threw back the covers, got out of bed shirtless, and headed for the bathroom. Wait here. I stared at his back in a daze. It wasn't until the sound of the shower started that I realized what was happening. He's really going? Half an hour later, Luke returned, carrying a takeout bag from Wang's, a hint of the cool morning air still clinging to him. He set the tofu pudding and steamed buns on the table, along with a container of the pumpkin porridge I had mentioned offhandedly. Eat up. It'll get gross if it gets cold, he said, pulling out a chair and sitting down with only a cup of black coffee in front of him. I slurped the hot tofu pudding, hissing from the spice, and that strange, warm feeling started to bubble up inside me again. The Prince of New York, impeccably dressed, sitting across from me, watching me devour a cheap street-side snack without a care in the world. The scene was surreal. Will staring at me fill you up? He asked, taking a sip of his coffee and glancing at me. Are you not working today? I changed the subject. Nope, he said, putting down his cup and tapping his fingers on the table. I'm taking you somewhere. Where? To buy art supplies, he said matter-of-factly. Didn't you say you wanted to try some new paints? I had my secretary look it up. There's a store in the West End that has everything. I almost choked on my tofu pudding. He even remembered that. I had just muttered it to myself while painting yesterday. The art supply store was huge and dazzling. I was like a kid in a candy store, excitedly weaving through the aisles, picking up this and touching that. Luke followed behind me, completely indifferent to the explosion of color, only reaching out to take a ridiculously expensive box of mineral pigments from my hand and tossing it into the cart. That one's too expensive. I whispered. It's not necessary. Just for testing. If you like the color, buy it, he said, his tone flat. Mrs. Vance can afford it. Fine, I don't understand the world of the super rich. When we got to the paintbrush section, I was agonizing over which size of a sable watercolor brush to get when a cheerful female voice cut in. Mr. Vance? It really is you. What a coincidence. I turned and saw a woman in a professional suit and flawless makeup, looking at Luke with a thrilled expression, completely ignoring me. Luke gave a curt nod. Director Lee. Are you here to buy art supplies too? What a refined hobby, Director Lee said with an eager smile, her gaze finally deigning to land on me with a critical eye. And this is my wife, Luke said, his arm naturally wrapping around my waist and pulling me closer. I'm helping her pick out a few things. Director Lee's smile faltered for a second before she quickly recovered. Oh, so this is Mrs. Vance. I've heard so much about you. Are you also interested in painting? Her heard so much about you made me a little uncomfortable. I just nodded. I just paint for fun. Mrs. Vance, you're too modest, Director Lee said with a laugh, but her tone was a little off. To be able to marry Mr. Vance, you must be exceptionally talented. Why did that sound so backhanded? I frowned and didn't reply. But Luke suddenly leaned down and whispered in my ear, loud enough for her to hear, "Honey, do you still want that brush? If not, let's go look at canvases." His tone was so natural and affectionate, completely dismissing the other person. Director Lee's face changed. She said stiffly, "Well, I won't disturb you and Mrs. Vance then." The moment she was gone, I tried to shrug his arm off. But he held on tighter and looked down at me. Not happy? And no, I said stubbornly. Your lip is pouted out so far I could hang a pot from it, he snorted, giving my waist a gentle pinch. Is some nobody really worth you getting upset over? Who's upset? I glared at him. What she said. She was clearly implying that I'm not good enough for you. The words were out before I could stop them. I froze. Why do I even care about that? Luke stopped walking and turned to face me, his expression serious. Chloe, he said, his tone unusually earnest, whether you're good enough or not is for me to decide. And I think you are. That's all that matters. After buying the art supplies, he took me to a private kitchen with a long waiting list. The afternoon sun was perfect. As the car passed by the river, he suddenly told the driver to pull over. Want to go for a walk? He asked. I was a little surprised, but I nodded. The river breeze was cool, dispelling the afternoon heat. We walked side by side along the path, with no destination and not much to say. Our arms would occasionally brush against each other, a subtle contact. We passed a cotton candy stand, and he stopped, bought a fluffy pink and blue cloud, and handed it to me. Am I a kid? I asked, holding the huge, fluffy confection, finding it a little amusing. Yeah, he nodded, a faint smile in his eyes. The one at home is particularly hard to please. I pretended to be about to hit him with the cotton candy, but he suddenly grabbed my wrist. Not far away, someone was holding up a phone, the camera seemingly pointed at us. Luke's face turned cold. He shielded me behind him and gave a subtle nod to the bodyguard following us. The bodyguard immediately went over and stopped the person taking photos. Watching the scene, the light-hearted feeling I had evaporated. Maybe we should go out less, I said quietly. It's too much trouble. Luke turned and looked down at me. Scared? Scared of causing trouble for you. He looked at me in silence for a few seconds, then suddenly reached out and ruffled my hair. Trouble? He smirked. I knew you wouldn't be easy when I married you. That didn't sound like a compliment. I glared at him. But he leaned down, took a bite of my cotton candy, and a wisp of sugar stuck to the corner of his lip, looking slightly comical. But, he straightened up, licked the sugar away, and looked at me with deep eyes. I like getting myself into trouble. The river breeze blew his bangs across his forehead. My heart, once again, traitorously skipped a beat. When we got home, Mrs. Davis handed me a package, saying it was for me. I opened it and found a beautiful art magazine, the latest issue. I flipped to the middle and saw my feature interview, complete with photos of several of my works. I was stunned. I looked at Luke. He was leaning back on the sofa, replying to emails, without even looking up. The magazine sent an advance copy. See if there are any changes you want to make. I held the magazine, looking at my name and my art printed on the glossy pages, and a strange warmth filled my heart. Thanks. He replied, still not looking up, his fingertips tapping quickly on the tablet screen. I curled up on the sofa next to him and flipped through the pages. The interview was well written, almost entirely about my creative process and journey, only lightly mentioning at the end that her husband, Mr. Luke Vance, has been a great support. I secretly glanced at him. The setting sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden glow on him. His profile was sharp and focused. That night in bed, I voluntarily rolled into his arms. He seemed a little surprised. His arm tightened around me out of habit, and his chin rested on the top of my head. "What's wrong?" "And nothing," I said, burying my face in his chest, my voice muffled. "Jay just wanted to hug you." He let out a low laugh, his chest vibrating. A follow-up benefit for the tenfold bonus? I should have known better than to expect anything profound from this man. I huffed, about to turn my back on him, but he held me even tighter. "Go to sleep," he whispered, kissing my forehead, his voice deepening. "I'll go with you to test out the new paints tomorrow." In the dark, I listened to his steady heartbeat, breathed in his reassuring scent, and slowly closed my eyes. There was still a long time left on the contract. Maybe living like this wouldn't be so bad. The 3-year term on our contract hung over my head like a sword. I started to subconsciously avoid the topic, even hiding the digital contract deep within a maze of folders on my computer, as if that would make it disappear. Luke seemed to have forgotten about it too, never mentioning it. Life went on as usual. He was busy with his business empire, I was busy with my painting, and at night, we squeezed into the same bed, fulfilling marital duties that had long since surpassed mere obligation. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night to find him holding me so tightly I could barely breathe, as if he were afraid I would run away if he let go. My heart would ache with a bittersweet softness. There was an annual gala in the art world. I didn't want to go, but Luke said the organizers had specifically sent an invitation to Mr. and Mrs. Vance, and it would be rude not to attend. He picked out the dress, a stunning, fiery red that made my skin look porcelain white. The cut was so form-fitting, it left nothing to the imagination. I looked at my glamorous reflection in the mirror, feeling a little dazed. Is it too much? He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder as we looked at our reflection. "No, it's beautiful." He paused, then added, "like a queen." I just stared at him. As expected, we were the center of attention at the gala. Luke never let go of my hand, taking me with him as he networked and toasted people, always introducing me as my wife, the artist Chloe, giving me all the respect in the world. I went to the restroom to touch up my makeup. On my way back, I overheard 2 women talking in the hallway. "TSK, look at her, so smug. Does she really think she's secured her position as Mrs. Vance?" "Exactly. Everyone knows it's a contract marriage. Just wait. She'll be kicked out when the contract is up." I froze, and the blood in my veins seemed to turn to ice. So, the whole world knew we had a contract marriage. And I was the only one who had almost started to believe it was real. On the car ride home, I was unusually quiet. Watching the glittering city lights fly by, my heart felt heavy and blocked. "What's wrong?" Luke asked, taking my hand. "Tired?" I pulled my hand away. "Yeah," I mumbled. He looked at me but didn't press further. When we got home, I walked straight to the guest room. I'm sleeping in here tonight." He grabbed my wrist, his grip a little too tight. "Why?" "I'm tired," I said, keeping my eyes down. "Chloe," he said, his voice dropping, "look at me." I looked up and met his deep, intense eyes. They clearly reflected my own miserable, insecure state. All the hurt and fear I had been bottling up all night suddenly burst forth. The contract is almost up," I heard my voice tremble. "Mr. Vance. Shouldn't we talk about the divorce?" The last few words took all the strength I had. The air instantly froze. Luke stared at me, his face slowly darkening, his eyes turning terrifyingly deep. Are you in that much of a hurry to leave? He asked, his voice as cold as ice. It's not that. I'm in a hurry. My nose started to burn, and tears welled up in my eyes. I'm afraid. Of the embarrassment. Later. He suddenly pulled me into his arms, his grip so tight it felt like he was trying to crush me. Who told you we're getting a divorce when it's up? He growled into my hair, his voice laced with anger. Did I agree to it? I froze, tears clinging to my eyelashes. But the contract says. The contract is a piece of paper, but we're real people. He roared, cupping my face and forcing me to look at him. Chloe, can't you feel it? I don't fucking want a divorce. My mind went completely blank. All I could do was stare at him. But everyone says. Does it matter what they say? He cut me off, his forehead pressed against mine, his breathing ragged. What matters is what's in here. He grabbed my hand and pressed it against his chest. Under my palm, I could feel his heart pounding violently, like a drumbeat against my own soul. In here, he stared at me, his eyes terrifyingly red, has been completely taken over by you, stutters. The contract is ending, he said, his voice impossibly hoarse, but my feelings for you have no expiration date. Do you understand? I opened my mouth, but the tears finally broke free, and I couldn't make a sound. He sighed, roughly wiping my tears away with his thumb, then leaned down and kissed me hard. This kiss was filled with anger, with fear, but most of all, with an overwhelming possessiveness and an undeniable love. I clumsily kissed him back, wrapping my arms around his neck. In the haze of passion, I heard him gasp in my ear, a divorce? Don't even think about it. For the rest of your life, you're staying by my side as my Mrs. Vance. The next day, I woke up in the master bedroom. The room was filled with sunlight. The space next to me was empty, but it was still warm. There was a file folder on the nightstand. Curious, I opened it and pulled out the documents inside. It was the familiar marriage contract. But at the end, there were a few handwritten lines. Addendum: the term of this contract is hereby automatically renewed until the termination of life for both parties. Note: Party A voluntarily transfers all personal assets and his entire being to Party B and is not eligible for a refund. Conditions of execution: Party B must permanently serve as Party A's wife and is granted the special privileges of kissing Party A at any time, ordering Party A around, and getting angry at Party A. At the bottom was his flamboyant signature and the date. I looked at the words, laughing and crying at the same time. That bastard. The door opened, and Luke walked in with a breakfast tray. He saw the documents in my hand and raised an eyebrow. You saw it? Sign on the dotted line. No take-backs. I hugged the documents to my chest and looked up at him, my eyes still red. The terms are too harsh. Especially the part about not being allowed to be mad. He put down the tray, leaned over me, and a smile played on his lips. Then we'll have to compensate in other ways. For example, he leaned in and kissed me, murmuring, by having a little one to tie you down for good. The sunlight fell on him, warm and dazzling. I wrapped my arms around his neck and deepened the kiss. One day, I snuck into Luke's study to find the novel I'd been reading late into the night before he confiscated it. As I rummaged around, my fingers brushed against something hard tucked away in the deepest corner of a drawer, an old leather wallet. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. There was no money inside, just an old, faded photograph, its edges worn from being touched so many times. In the photo, a handsome but still boyish-looking teenager in a school uniform was clearly a young Luke. And his gaze was fixed on a girl in the distance, a girl with a messy ponytail, clutching a stack of sketchbooks, a half-eaten burrito in her mouth, her nose scrunched up as if she were yelling at someone. The background was the noisy food street next to our university. That girl. Was me? Just then, the study door opened. Luke stood in the doorway. When he saw the photo in my hand, he visibly stiffened. What is this? I held up the photo. Why you? You knew me. Back then? Yes, Luke admitted, his voice low. For much longer than you think. Why? My mind was a chaotic mess. The forced marriage? Choosing me? It was all. On purpose? What else? He walked toward me, took the photo from my hand, and gently brushed his finger over the image. Did you really think the Prince of New York, if he needed a shield, couldn't find someone more suitable? That he'd need a short-tempered stutterer who would curse him out on the street? I stood there with my mouth open, speechless. So, all that talk about grabbing a random person off the street and revenge was all an excuse? Ever since that debate competition in college, when you were in the audience making faces at the opposing team, and when you got caught, you just stubbornly and stutteringly argued back. He chuckled softly. I noticed you then. And after that, I watched you from afar for a long time. I watched you squat on the curb, eating a burrito without a care in the world. I watched you and your best friend gossip and laugh until you were falling over. I watched you argue with clients over a few $100s for a commission, so angry you were practically jumping up and down. Chloe, you were so vibrant, so real. You were like an untamable fire that burned a hole right through my world. When my mom started pushing me to get married, you were the first person I thought of. I couldn't find a reason to get close to you, so I used the stupidest method I could think of. I looked up your work address, calculated your commute route, and even had my driver, coincidentally, be near your favorite burrito stand. When I saw you squatting there that day, eating with such relish, I knew. It had to be you. No matter what it took, I had to tie you to my side first. Listening to his story, I was overwhelmed with a mix of shock, realization, embarrassment, and an indescribable fluttering in my chest. So, this wasn't some sudden windfall. It was a long-cherished, secret love finally coming to fruition. Then. The contract? And all that money. The contract was a stupid excuse to keep you from running away. The money. He laughed self-deprecatingly, was the only thing I could think of to make you stay with me, even for a little while. I knew you needed money, and luckily, I had plenty of it. He took a deep breath, grabbed my wrist, his eyes more earnest and nervous than I had ever seen them. Chloe, now you know everything. Do you think I'm manipulative and calculating? Are you going to leave me? He tried to act nonchalant, but his fingers were unconsciously fidgeting with the hem of his trousers. My heart melted, and at the same time, it felt as sweet as an exploding honey pot. This bastard. So reserved. Such a dog. He had a crush on me and didn't confess sooner, making us waste all this time. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, and the sweeter it felt. In the end, all my emotions turned into a stinging in my eyes and a smile I couldn't suppress. So, I sniffled, deliberately putting on a stern face and stuttering my accusation, why you've been plotting against me for a long time. And you acted all high and mighty, teasing me, calling me a stutterer, complaining about my burrito smell. A flash of panic crossed Luke's eyes. He quickly tried to explain, I don't care. I cut him off. This is. You deceived me. You have to. Compensate me. Luke froze for a second, then swept me into a tight hug. Okay. I'll compensate you. Anything you want, Chloe, I'll give it to you, okay? That's more like it. Later, the legend circulating in New York's elite circles took a new turn. Prince Luke Vance hadn't had a whirlwind marriage at all. It was a love story years in the making, a carefully orchestrated plan to win the heart of his longtime crush. He was a true romantic. And the infamous short-tempered, stuttering Mrs. Vance, it was said, held the evidence of Luke's secret crush, that old photograph, and her position was ironclad. She ruled the roost, living a life of luxury, eating burritos and spicy chips whenever she pleased, becoming more and more spoiled and content. One day, Luke finally had enough and confiscated my stash of spicy chips. I stomped my foot in anger. Why you? You used to. Like. Watching me eat burritos. He slung me over his shoulder and carried me to the bedroom, his voice a mix of exasperation and adoration. That was then. Now I'd rather just eat you. As I stared at the two very clear lines on the pregnancy test, Luke was in the middle of a critical video conference. I could faintly hear his deep, fluent English through the closed study door. I clutched the small plastic stick, my legs a little weak, my mind a jumbled mess. What would his reaction be? Surprise? Shock? The study door opened, and Luke walked out, loosening his tie. He saw me sitting on the bathroom floor and immediately frowned. What are you doing on the floor? It's cold. He came over and reached out to pull me up. I held out the pregnancy test, my fingers trembling slightly. He froze, his gaze falling on it. The silence was deafening. My heart was about to pound out of my chest, and I started babbling. I didn't mean to. It was that time. You said. Performance. Before I could finish, he yanked me up and pulled me into a fierce hug, so tight my bones ached. This is great, he said, his voice hoarse as he buried his face in my neck, his breathing heavy. Great? I was stunned. He let me go, cupped my face in his hands, his eyes shining, an irrepressible smile on his lips. Chloe, you're amazing. That's it? No questions? No hesitation? Just acceptance? Aren't you worried? It's too soon. I was still in a daze. Soon. He raised an eyebrow, the pad of his thumb stroking my cheek. I wish you had gotten pregnant yesterday. He leaned down, his forehead resting against mine, a smile in his voice. Now, let's see you try to run away. During my pregnancy, I became a national treasure. Luke moved half of his company's work home, claiming that fetal education should start with management. Mrs. Davis cooked up all sorts of nutritious meals for me. My parents called 3 times a day to check on me, and Luke's grandfather even sent over a team of nutritionists. I gained weight, and my temper grew along with my belly. Before, I never dared to get angry at him. Now, I snapped at him whenever I wasn't happy. This soup is too bland. Are you feeding a rabbit? I pushed away the bowl of soup he handed me. Mr. Perfect Husband calmly took it back. You're right. My mistake. I'll have the kitchen remake it. Stay away from me. Your breathing is too loud, I would say, kicking him awake in the middle of the night. Luke would silently take his pillow to the guest room for an hour, then sneak back and gently wrap his arms around me from behind. The baby kicked me today. I would complain pitifully. He would immediately put down his files and kneel by my stomach, on high alert. You dare bully your mom? I'll deal with you when you get out. I would burst out laughing. When I was 6 months pregnant, I had a sudden craving for the grilled cold noodles from the back alley of our old university. The street was too narrow for a car. Luke looked at my pleading eyes, was silent for 3 seconds, then resignedly took off his designer suit jacket, unstrapped his watch, and rolled up his shirt sleeves. Wait here. An hour later, the Prince of New York returned, carrying a container of grilled cold noodles with double sausage and egg, walking through the noisy crowd of students, a light sheen of sweat on his forehead, and a suspicious splatter of grease on his trousers. I ate every last bite of the noodles, then looked at him and smiled. Mr. Vance, your image is shattered. He took a napkin and wiped my mouth, his tone nonchalant. As long as Mrs. Vance is happy. At the prenatal checkup, in the ultrasound room, the doctor pointed at the screen with a smile. See, the baby is very healthy. Here are the little arms and legs. The doctor paused, looked closer. It seems. There are 2 gestational sacs. TW twins? My voice cracked. Luke's hand, holding mine, tightened. His Adam's apple bobbed, but his voice was steady when he asked the doctor, "Are you sure?" "Pretty much." "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Vance." Walking out of the hospital, I felt like I was floating. Luke helped me into the car. As he buckled my seatbelt, his hands trembled so much it took him a few tries. That night, he stared at my still flat stomach as if facing a formidable enemy. "The performance bonus," he said suddenly, his expression serious, "needs to be doubled. 1 bonus for each," he reasoned. "The workload has doubled, so the bonus should too." I threw a pillow at him in frustration. You bastard. See, can you really measure this with money?" He caught the pillow, chuckled, and pulled me into his arms, his palm resting gently on my stomach. "You're right. It can't be measured with money," he whispered. "You're my priceless treasures." The delivery was smoother than expected, but it still felt like I had been skinned alive. When I was wheeled out of the delivery room, I was so tired I could barely open my eyes. Through the haze, I felt someone gently kiss my forehead, their voice choked with emotion. "You worked so hard, honey." It was Luke. I tried to open my eyes to see him, but I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, I was in a VIP room. Luke was holding a swaddled baby in each arm, his posture stiff but careful, a rare, slightly dopey smile on his face. "Come see. A boy and a girl," he said, gently placing the babies next to me on the bed. 2 wrinkly little creatures, like 2 little monkeys. My heart melted. I reached out and gently touched their tiny faces. So ugly. "They're cute," I whispered. "Just like you," Luke immediately shot back. I glared at him. He let out a low laugh, leaned down, and kissed me. "Beautiful. Just as beautiful as you." Raising kids was chaotic. Even with 3 nannies, Luke insisted on being hands-on, changing diapers, feeding, and burping, all with surprising competence. Except, in the middle of the night, our daughter would start wailing. I'd be so sleepy my eyelids would be glued shut. I'd nudge Luke. "It's your turn." Mr. Perfect Husband would resign himself to his fate, get up, and frantically mix formula, spilling it all over himself while testing the temperature. The son, seemingly woken by his sister, would also start to fuss. For a moment, the room would fill with a duet of crying. Luke would hold one in each arm, pacing back and forth, humming a business plan out of tune. I'd watch his disheveled but gentle profile and couldn't help but laugh. "What are you laughing at?" he'd ask, giving me a helpless look. "I just think." I yawned, then said slowly, "Even Mr. Vance has his moments." He would walk to the bed, place the slightly calmer daughter in my arms, and continue to soothe our son. "Yeah," he'd say, looking at the baby in his arms, his eyes soft. And I wouldn't have it any other way. The first light of dawn would peek through the window. The room, filled with the smell of milk and the fading sound of crying. We, 2 novice parents, hair a mess, dark circles under our eyes, had found the entire world in the midst of this beautiful chaos.